very warm welcome to Bharata First. You're watching the Discourse with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. Since you're here, I have a humble request from you. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share the content so that more people get to know about Bharata First. That's it, nothing more. And we also have a YouTube membership program with some great perks. Do check them out under the join button and join now. And finally, do contribute to keep our content alive. The link is in the description below. A small contribution that you make takes us a long way. Now on to the discussion. The Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Amendment Bill 2023, the Centre's Ordinance on the Control of Services in the Capital, was passed by Parliament. The Centre on May 19th had promulgated the ordinance which creates the authority for the transfer and postings of Group A officers in Delhi. The ordinance was brought in days after the Supreme Court had ruled that Delhi's elected government has control over services except in matters of law and order, police and land. Now, the ordinance has been a major flashpoint between Arvind Kejriwal's AAP and the centre. The Home Minister made it clear that the central government has the power to make laws on union territories, and Delhi, being a union territory, the centre enjoys full rights to make rules there. Now, in this edition of the Discourse, we will analyze the Delhi Services Bill. Joining me on the program today are Bimbadar Pradhan, former Secretary, Government of India, and SP Singh, legal expert. Thank you to both my guests for joining me on this edition of the Discourse. Mr. Pradhan, let me start the program with you first. As far as this particular bill is concerned, there are a lot of things to it, and most certainly the aspect that we are going to focus on is the salient features of the bill and the importance of this bill, so to speak.
To be very precise, sir, let's take a little bit the context. 2015, it was the tussle between the Lieutenant Governor and the Delhi government, sir. Or to that matter, LG versus the Chief Minister of Delhi. Now, if you go by the 2018 Supreme Court judgment, that was a split judgment. Now, again, May 2023 Honorable Supreme Court judgment gave the power of administrative matters to the Delhi government. And all of us are aware that public order, police, and the land is vested with the Lieutenant Governor. Now, it is peculiar to Delhi. It is a union territory. It is with a legislature. And also, it is the national capital of India and a sprawling metropole. Now, given that at the background, this very bill of 2023 has certain salient features. I will only take the one, that is the Constitution of National Capital Civil Services Authority, that is NCCSA. This is an authority. When the act is passed, the chairperson is the Honorable Chief Minister of Delhi. One of the members is the Chief Secretary of Delhi, and the member secretary is Principal Home Secretary. What is their role and responsibility? They will advise or they will provide recommendations to the Honorable Lieutenant Governor on service matters. Thereby, whether it is the posting of to any board, any authority, any commission, that will be decided based on the recommendations of this authority by the Lieutenant Governor. I will clarify a little bit. If you go by the judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court, the matter was, I think, settled. This 2023 Honorable Supreme Court's judgment. And it is a 5-judge constitutional bench. That the service matter or the administrative matters, let's leave it to the Delhi government. And the issue of public order, land, and police should be vested with the Lieutenant Governor. This is the background. Now the issue is to what extent it is within or it is aligned with the cooperative federalism principles. We have got an elected government and we have got an administrator who is only elected. Now, should we centralize so much power relating to whether it is the service-related issues of Delhi government, or to that matter, DANIX officers who are posted in Delhi government? Now, as we evolve, that may be settled, but now it is elected government versus an administrator or lieutenant governor who is unelected. Thank you.
That was beautifully put into context for us, and this is where I'd like to bring you in, Mr. Singh, as a legal expert. How do you look at it? Because you have this Supreme Court judgment, which clearly states what it states and says that the administrative powers, barring those three particular aspects that Mr. Pradhan has spoken about, lies with the elected government. But you have the central government coming up with this particular bill now, and the elected government in the Union Territory of Delhi says that at some level it is subverting our real powers. So, from a legal perspective, how would you look at it?
Delhi has the misfortune of having seen nearly a decade of this confrontation between the elected government and the LG, who is the representative of the president or the central government. Now, the issue involved here, as Mr. Pradhan has very beautifully explained, is, and as has been very strongly reinforced by the 11th May Supreme Court judgment also, that an elected government, which is accountable to the populace of this union territory, which is only, by nomenclature is a union territory, but in terms of its population, it is bigger than 10 states. So there is a large population and a population which is the who are the residents of a capital city. So one can assume that the aspirations may be slightly more than the national aspirations across the various states. Now the point is there is an elected government, and an elected government has been mandated by the populace of the state to carry on the affairs. Now, much before all this slugfest started happening, it was nearly an established thing that for the purpose of public order, police and land, the elected government in Delhi would have no jurisdiction, and for the rest of the governance, Delhi government through its elected representatives and the council of ministers would be doing the everyday governance. And it can it's been kind of a tug of war between three LGs and a lone CM in the last about 9 to 10 years. And what we find is that it causes much more than inconvenience. I think it causes a lot of embarrassment because every time, right since 2015, we have had, I believe, 6 to 7 instances when the Supreme Court, be it a constitutional bench or a regular bench, they had to intervene and make it very clear. Now, in the latest instance, the 11th May judgment probably settled for all times to come that for the purpose of the governance aspects other than land, police, and public order, the elected government would be the sole authority, and the lieutenant governor would be working or doing the everyday governance basis the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. And now this the legal position that has suddenly emerged is that within 8 days an ordinance was introduced. As we know in our parlance, ordinances are normally brought in when there are circumstances where necessary governance issues are in jeopardy and it needs to be immediately addressed. Sorry to be saying, but then in this case, such was not the situation, and parliamentary session was pretty, imminent. So that could have been avoided, but it's okay. Now there have been voices that the ordinance was some sort of a contempt of law, which I don't agree, because legislature, and for that matter, the union legislature is empowered, is privileged to bring about any legislation which needs to probably nullify or remove some kind of administrative impediments created by a judgment, and they are very much within their rights to do that. Now, the problem is that, as we have already discussed, this bill has almost become 50% act, and in the next couple of days, it is going to become an act. Now, the problem is, on the one hand, the verdict, the 11th May verdict has already been it has been raised by the central government for a review already, which is pending. And at the same time, now the Supreme Court has been petitioned again with this, that an ordinance has come. I believe it is going to be quite a task for the Supreme Court now to go back and see. Now, the problem is the central government says that in its 11th May judgment, the Supreme Court itself said that the central government can bring about a legislation about how Delhi is to be governed, and accordingly, the rights and privileges of the LG would be modified. So they therefore see a lot of relevance in terms of why they brought this, and they are only trying to get validation. While on the other hand, as Mr. Pradhan has already mentioned, we also work in an environment where parliamentary democracy is supreme, and the elected people who are actually accountable to the populace, they need to have power, so that otherwise, what purpose they fight election, and then how do they go back to their electorate? So therefore, I think it's a very, very embarrassing situation also from legal point of view, because the Supreme Court has to now, probably for the last time, we believe, will have to take a clear position on this, and only time will tell what is going to happen in the days to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we are both smiling, Mr. Singh, because we know that, we thought there would be some finality as far as the May 11th judgment was concerned, because it was a 5-judge constitution bench, and still here we are continuing to discuss about this. And that's what's beautiful about, democracy and the Indian democracy as well, because things change with every turn. Mr. Pradhan, since we are here now, does this in any way put additional pressure on the Danics cadre officials on the ground to carry out their day-to-day work? Does this have any kind of an impact on governance as a whole?
So, to be very honest, what is the role of the bureaucracy? The role of the bureaucracy or the role of civil services in a democracy is to implement the public policy. If the role of the civil servants is to implement the public policy, and this very civil services authority, if it is going to advise or it is going to recommend, though the Chief Minister, Honorable Chief Minister of Delhi, is the chairperson of this very authority. But at the end of the day, if you go back to the 2018 judgment, which was a split judgment, what was Honorable Justice Bhushan has said? He said that the services should not be vested with the Delhi government. Whereas Honorable Justice Sikri has mentioned that to a certain extent, whether it is secretary, additional secretary, or joint secretary, those postings must be decided both in consultation with the Honorable Chief Minister, but to be decided by the Lieutenant General. But now the stand of the Delhi government is that if I have to post a commerce secretary or the health secretary, should I go to the Honorable Lieutenant Governor? This is the issue. If you take the governance or if you take the implementation of public policy, who designs the public policy? It is the elected government, whether at the center or at the state or at the union territory. It is the prerogative of the legislature. And rightly pointed out by Singh sir, that the elected government and the unelected administrator, if the elected government is accountable to the people, to the citizens, to their voters, therefore, they must have prerogative or discretion in posting the officers. Now, with this bill of 2023, whether it is any board, any authority, any commission, say for example, the Delhi Commission for Women, who will post the chairperson? Is it the elected government, or the panel should, the authority, that is the Civil Services Authority, NCCA, should send a panel of 2 or 3 officers or persons to the Honorable Lieutenant Governor. Now, if you go to the list 2 and the list 3 of the 7th schedule, that is also very clear. Out of list 2, it is public order, police, and land that was vested with the central government or the representative of the central government, that is the Lieutenant Governor. Therefore, the other matters relating to the governance of the union territory, and let us say whether it is Delhi or Puducherry, that must be left to the elected government. And if I go by the Honorable Supreme Court verdict of 2023, due diligence has been done, and with their wisdom, they have given this finality that the administrative matters or the service matters must be left to the elected government.
Absolutely. Now, since we are here, Mr. Singh, so where does this leave the elected government of Delhi? You know, do they have a legal recourse now? Because clearly they are crying foul. They are upset with everything that has happened. This has been going on for a few months now, and they say that they feel powerless. So, what is the point of having us, run the state of Delhi when we have no teeth to bite?
There are 2-3 things that we have probably missed out till now. In the representative democratic system, you would be surprised to know that in this act, the act empowers or takes away the power of convening the assembly from the CM. Now, calling for an assembly session has traditionally been, at the behest of the CM, who is nothing but who's no one but the leader of the Council of Ministers, who recommends the convening of the House, and the House gets convened. Now, in this act, even this power has been taken away from the Chief Minister. Another very important thing, which therefore I believe is going to be raised at the Supreme Court level also, is parliamentary democracy has already been discussed and declared as a basic feature of our constitution in the Kejriwal Bharati judgment, which was nearly 50 years back. Now the point is, if you take away the rights of the elected government, it leaves nothing with, as you have rightly mentioned, it leaves nothing with the elected government in the sense that they have no face, I'll use the common language, no face to show to their electorate. Secondly, and which is even more serious, is the Act also mentions that the Honorable CM or the Chief Secretary or the Principal Secretary Home, in certain situations, can directly raise issues with the Lieutenant Governor. Now, they certainly are going to be raising issues which relate to some departments or something to do with some policies or stuff like that. Now, the point is, it therefore means that the ministers of the Delhi government, they probably are going to become jobless, in the sense that if the secretaries are straight away reaching out to the LG, so and bypassing the ministers, then the very purpose of, or the very essence of collective responsibility is taken away. Now, as we all know, in democracy, every cabinet works on the concept of collective responsibility. So ministers come together and go together. If one minister has been found to be wrong, it is actually a reflection on the whole cabinet. Now, the point is, if the cabinet's ministers are being bypassed, so the very essence of collective responsibility of this government is probably, makes no sense. Now, as regards the legal recourse, I believe the biggest strength that the Delhi government could probably be happy about is the 11th May judgment. Even if this act comes into being, which it is most likely to be, after the Rajya Sabha passes it, it will be sent to the Honorable President for her assent, and after that, it will come into existence. The point is, it can still be challenged. And looking at the background of the 11th May 2023 judgment, which was a unanimous five judges bench, constitutional bench judgment, it appears, it appears very much probable that the Supreme Court is not going to relish what has happened. After a very concluding verdict that they gave. But again, I will still say that more than anything else, I think what is required, and I'm slightly digressing, is political maturity. So unless both the sides, the union government and the state government, they show some kind of political maturity, this slugfest is going to actually make things uglier than what they presently are.
Absolutely. So since we are here, we're talking about what is required and what needs to be done. We'll also get closing comments now from both the panelists with the best way forward and what next. Starting first with you, Mr. Pradhan.
Yeah, sir. Again, my focus will be, the takeaway of the 2018 judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court and 2023. And little bit I will digress. If I have to quote one of the ex-chief ministers of Delhi, who ruled for 15 years, two regimes of UPA, and also one regime of NDA. What she has said, that we ruled for 15 years, whatever was the cabinet decided, whenever he used to go to the lieutenant governor, always he used to agree. That is the statement of, I am not going into the political aspect of, but 15 years, there was no tussle, there was no turf war. So it was a seamless kind of governance. At that point of time, Delhi was also a union territory and also a national capital. However, 15 years rule, and to the ex-chief minister, there has been no tussle or no, turf war between the lieutenant governor and the elected governor. And if I have to conclude, powers of the center and the Delhi government are collective and coextensive. The Delhi government or the elected Delhi government and the lieutenant governor have to work harmoniously with each other. There is no room for anarchy or absolutism in a democracy. However, with a caveat, the elected government's functioning should not be undermined nor curtailed by an unelected administrator. Constitution and the NCT of Delhi Act of 1991 envisage a collaborative structure that can be worked only through constitutional trust. So there lies the political maturity. And each institution, once the Honorable Supreme Court by a 5-judge bench has given a verdict about the services, we must have that kind of maturity to accept it and navigate. Delhi is unique. And if I remember, Honorable, the ex-chief minister Madan Lal Khurana ji and Sahib Singham, they also fought for the full statehood. No matter, there might be a situation when one party is in power in Delhi and another party is in power in, say, center. It will happen. Rarely it will be a situation that the same party is in power in Delhi and the same party is in center. maybe there will be no tussle or there will be no political turf war. But in a democracy, we must learn to work harmoniously for the welfare of the citizens. Whatever may be the public policy, whether it is brought down by the elected government and the bureaucracy, the role and responsibility is to implement those public policies. We cannot undermine the role of the elected government, and at the end of the day, it is the administrator or the lieutenant governor. He or she must aid and advise the Council of the Ministers, and we must respect the verdict of the Honorable Supreme Court. Thank you.
Absolutely. Very rightly said there, Mr. Pradhan. Mr. Singh, let me get your quick closing comment on the program.
I think Mr. Pradhan's concluding remarks are probably the most mature, way the politics of the country should move. But then we don't live in an ideal situation, and the problems, the political slugfest, the confrontation between the political parties is not a very good thing to find in a mature democracy of nearly now so many years. But again, this is how it is. But in terms of the solution, I have a very and it can be revolutionary, and it can bring lasting peace. I completely agree that it is a unique situation. Delhi is the capital city of a country which is now the front-running country, and very soon it is going to be one of the superpowers of the world. So therefore, the capital, the union government, the major institutions like Supreme Court, various properties of the central government, etc. Yes, there is a concern that, and nowhere in the world you will find that large cities, they have typical governance arrangements. I'm giving a very small solution which can, if it is executed, can really bring lasting peace, which is, we completely agree with the concern of the union government. Take away the NDMC area, which is the India Gate, the South Block, the new parliament, the old parliament, all, the NDMC area. Declare it as a union territory of New Delhi. Okay? Let it be under a senior civil servant who could be like the erstwhile chief commissioner, or, somebody of that level, reporting to, say, MHA. Now, the rest of the Delhi, and the rest of the Delhi is about 16 million. Convert that into a state. It may be a small state in terms of size, but as I've already mentioned, in terms of population and in terms of trade, the revenue generated out of business and trade, it would be no less than at least half the states. Kindly convert the rest of the area into a proper full-fledged state with a full-fledged government and a complete governor, not a lieutenant governor, and let it run independently. The union territory of New Delhi would have its own police, its own cadre, its own chief commissioner reporting to MHA. I believe this would be a very sore pill to swallow, but I believe for a lasting peace and for in terms of the letting the good sense to prevail, I believe this can be a very good arrangement. And this would make almost everybody happy, in the sense that political parties, they'll keep fighting elections, they come and go. And the strategically important part of the capital city of Delhi has been carved away. It is being, ruled by way of a separate arrangement. I believe this can be a brilliant arrangement. Till then, of course, as Mr. Pradhan has advised, maturity remains the way forward. Supreme Court, I believe, would certainly take notice of this act. Delhi government is most certain to, reach out to Supreme Court again As Mr. Pradhan has already mentioned, Supreme Court probably should not be bothered again and again with the same kind of rumblings. So I believe good sense would prevail, uh, and in the times to come, we would either have, a better coordinated lieutenant governor and the elected government, or as I have suggested, some major decision to be taken to bring happiness and peace for the years to come.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. There is nothing above the rule of law and constitution, and that is what should govern us, and that is what should govern the administrators, is what Mr. Pradhan is suggesting. A radical suggestion there by Mr. Singh as well. Let's see how things go forward and where this issue comes to an end, and I hope it meets its logical end sooner rather than later. Thank you to both my guests for joining me on this edition of the Discourse. Much pleasure having you here on the program.
It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you, sir. Thank you,
It's been a
Singh sir. Thank you.
So what's coming out of this discussion is that the ordinance could have waited and need not have been brought in May, when the monsoon session of Parliament was just a few weeks away. That being said, the central government is fully in its rights to bring in such a legislation, but the elected government should not be undermined, as they represent the will of the people. As far as the bureaucracy goes, it is mandated to work for the people, and that should be the only thing that drives it. The center and the Delhi government should bury the hatchet, show maturity, and work for the people. The sooner the political turf war ends, the better it is for the citizens of Delhi. Both sides should only be governed by the rule of law and the constitution. There can't be anything above it. As far as this issue goes, we may not have seen the last of it or the end of it, as the Supreme Court may want to have the final say, as its May judgment has been undermined. Well, that's it in this edition of the Discourse. But since you've made it till here, I would like to remind you to like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share the content so that more people get to know about Bharata first. We also have a YouTube membership program with some great perks. Do check it out under the join button and join now. And finally, do contribute to keep our content alive. The link is in the description below. A small contribution that you make takes us a long way and will help us a lot. Until next time, this is Frank Rausen Pereira signing off.